Hello everyone, my name is Farhan Ahmad and I'm a lecturer at DHA Sufa University Karachi, and today we'll be discussing about business communication. This is the second lecture on the subject of business communication, and today we want to discuss about forms of communication. But before we go ahead, we want to discuss some of the basics that we have done in the last week for the first lecture. So as I've established, if you look at our society or our lifestyle, as humans, we are called the social animals. We cannot survive without communicating. And as far as the communication is concerned, the history of communication is as old as humans are. So, when we discuss the oldest remnants of communication, we find that the oldest records are found from the Egyptian Empire, where the messages were carved on the rocks and on the tablets. That's the oldest remnants of the writing that we have found. However, when we discuss communication, guys, I've already discussed communication is the exchange of meaning and understanding. So if I was to say any message to you, if I was to give you any message, for example, if I want to tell you that ni hao ma, if it is a foreign language, you might not be able to decode the meaning of this message. Therefore, we have to understand if the meaning and the understanding of the message is interpreted between the two parties, then the successful communication can take place. So that's something we have discussed in the previous class, that communication is not just the exchange of message, it's the exchange of meaning and understanding. Secondly, we discussed that every communication in terms of process can be understood by different models. So one model that we have got is by David Kenneth Burlow, who said the communication process comprises four elements: sender, message, channel, and receiver. However, I have added another thing here called medium, and that's something I have done. Why? Because I want to tell you the evolution of communication and how each communication process have got distinct characteristics. So if, for example, a hawker comes to your home and he throws a newspaper, he delivers the newspaper. Under these circumstances, if we were to discuss the SMCR model, how would you identify all the elements here? So if you look at the sender here in this process where the hawker is delivering a newspaper to your home, the sender is the hawker, or is it the organization that has sent the newspaper is the sender? So for example, if we are receiving Dawn newspaper, is Dawn newspaper is the sender, or is it the hawker the sender? So we understand the sender is the Dawn newspaper. Message would be anything that is sort of like inscribed in this newspaper. So if we talk about the content of the newspaper, anything that has been written in the newspaper, or any other message that is available there in the form of pictures and anything else, that is the part of the message, and that's something we call content. So we have got content there, and of course newspaper has got many pages, the city page, the national page, and there are many news stories, features, articles, columns, opinions, editorial, advertisements. So anything that is available in the newspaper is the form of what? Message. Receiver, of course, you as the audience are receiving the newspaper, so is the that's receiver. And channel, now this is the tricky part. Most of the people say channel is not the hawker, is something else. But in this case, if the hawker is delivering the newspaper to your home, channel will be the hawker, because he's the source, he's the means by which you are getting your newspaper. And the last thing is the medium. So if you talk about newspaper, if I pick this particular book here, if for example this is the newspaper and things are inscribed on that, so anything written in this newspaper, it's in printed form. So that's the print medium. So is the example of the same D.K. Burlow model, where we have got print medium as the medium. However, if you're sitting at a home and you're watching the TV and you want to identify all the elements as far as D.K. Burlow model is concerned, the sender wouldn't be the anchor who is reading out the news on the TV for you. Sender would be the channel, TV channel. It could be PTV, Pakistan Television Channel, that is sending you the message. And how they're sending the message, they have got massive antennas installed on the rooftop. So if you look at the PTV station, if someone is videoing, I'm the director, I'm videoing my news anchor, and my news anchor is going through the news story that 3 people have been killed and scores of them have been injured in a blast near so and so. He will record everything, the content will be edited, and then this content will be sent through this antenna to the satellite. And once the content is sent to through the antenna to the satellite, the beam will reflect and it will cover a certain territory. That's why we say that there's not a single channel that is being viewed all over Pakistan. Each channel has got certain licenses to be viewed in certain territories. And I think the biggest coverage that we have is of Radio Pakistan all over Pakistan. So we understand in this case the channel will be the beam. Of course, message is whatever is being run on the TV. So the dramas, the advertisement, any other content that has been run on the TV, that will be the part of message. And receiver are the audience who are watching the TV at home. So we understand this thing. However, the medium, this is where people struggle. What would be the medium? Medium is the electronic medium. So we understand there's print medium, anything comes in printed form. This is electronic medium. Now if I was to give you the example that if I'm using my phone and I'm teaching you, I'm taking an online class, how would you identify all the elements in the online class? So if I'm the teacher, I'm utilizing a mobile phone and I'm sort of like communicating the message to you guys. So sender, of course, is me, and it's vice versa. If you're speaking, you're the sender. Receiver are the students. Message would be anything that is displayed on your screen, mobile phone screen, while I'm taking the online class. If you're viewing my visuals, if you're viewing my video, that's the part of the message. My spoken words will be the part of the message too, because whatever sound bites you're receiving is the part of the message. And if you're seeing any PowerPoint displayed on your screen, that will be the part of written message. So there will be 2 messages, oral and written. And of course, visuals are there as well. So that's something we want to cover in the forms of communication. And channel, in this case, the channel won't be the software. It's not Zoom, it's not Google Meet. Channel is the internet. Because internet is making this communication process, communication event possible. And the last thing is medium, and this is where most of the people struggle. They find it very tricky. Medium will be digital medium. So we understand so far that yes, communication is the lifeblood of an organization. Just like my body cannot function without the blood circulation, an organization cannot function without the effective and efficient communication process. So we understand communication is the lifeblood of an organization. It is the exchange of meaning and understanding. There are different models that we have at our disposal that we can utilize to explain the process. Cloudy-Shannon model is another unique model which has an element of noise in it, and that can explain the entire communication process. And when we discuss about the different medium, we have got print medium, we have got electronic medium, we have got digital medium. And I have made a very astute observation, and that's based on my research, how these mediums have evolved over the period of time and how communication has become so sophisticated that we have become interplanetary species. We can send data from the moon to Earth right now. As you know that there are many rovers, Chinese rover, Indian rover, they are on the moon right now. They're sending the data, they're sending the content back. So this is very interesting to see the interplanetary communication is taking place. So we see in 1900s, print medium became popular. It touched its peak. Why? Because of the construction or establishment of railway system. So Britishers, they laid down the entire railway infrastructure, and due to the railways, news started traveling fast. So back in the days, the mode of transportation of newspaper were very manual. People used to walk, people used to take cycles or any other, sort of equipment. But when trains came, the news started moving really fast, and it covered great distances. So we understand print medium went to its peak in 1900. Excuse me. Bless me. I'm so sorry about this one. It's just the weather change. So apologies for that. So 1900 we have got print medium that is touching its peak. In 1930s we see radio became popular and it touched its peak, and even the German army utilized radio as the war weapon. And in 1960s TV became popular, and Pakistan had its own first TV in 1964. And in 1990s, of course, we have got internet that became popular. And I remember one of my cousins had internet in 1990s, and it would take half an hour to load one email. That was a sort of like speed of the internet at that time. And 2020, we see, of course, we are living in the world of information technology revolution. 2020s, we have got artificial intelligence. And in 2050s, it is expected that we'll be working on synthetic intelligence. And in Australia, there's a lot of work being done on synthetic intelligence. So we see there has been an evolution of communication mediums over the course of time. And what the future will look like, we don't know. As you know, Elon Musk is working on this thing called some neurotechnology where humans and robots are coming together, and that's the merger of humans and robotics and automation for the first time in the history. So it's very interesting how the communication is taking different forms and how fast it is evolving. So we understand, we have done a quick sort of like a review of what we had done in the previous class, and of course, how can I forget the example of ChatGPT and Google's competition when we discussed it in the previous lecture as well. That competition is so stiff nowadays, it's so tough that companies are vying and they're competing with each other. And Google, responding to OpenAI artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, they came up with their own product called Bard. And when they were making the presentation, it is protected by technology called Lambda. When the lady was making the presentation, rolling out or showcasing Bard technology, the Google search engine, which is powered by artificial intelligence, she searched for a question, and she said that which agency identified or discovered the exoplanets in the universe first? Was it James Webb Telescope or was it European agency? And the Bard came up with the answer, it was the James Webb Telescope. However, the answer was wrong, and it was the European agency that identified the exoplanets in the universe first. And because of this one blunder, just one mistake, the parent company of Google, Alphabet, it lost $100 billion in an hour. So you can very well imagine how these Silicon Valley giants are, sort of competing with each other, and how they're trying to take a competitive advantage or comparative advantage over each other. So we see the market is very tough and things are going really difficult. So we want to discuss different forms of communication today, and I want to just quickly go through forms of communication. So first thing we have discussed, communication is the lifeblood of an organization, and we see we live in a world where we are social animals. We cannot survive without sort of like maintaining a social contact, and communication is one of the fundamental parts of it. And communication, especially writing, can be identified from the ancient times of Egypt, where records were maintained on the tablets and the rocks. Carvings were utilized to sort of like preserve the stories or the history of that time. So we understand, guys, forms of communication can be divided into, and no one is going to tell you this, how the forms of communication are divided into different parts. So that's something I'm going to do for you. I'm going to divide it in terms of channel. That's the first thing I want to do. Not many people understand this thing, but I want to just tell you in terms of everything. So in terms of channel, communication can be divided into two parts. We have verbal and we have non-verbal. So verbal communication, as you can see right now, I'm communicating with you. You might be asking the question, is it only verbal or is it non-verbal? So I just want to make sure that I cover myself. So is this a verbal communication or non-verbal? And that's something we'll be discussing. However, verbal is further divided into two: oral and written communication. So the first one is in terms of channel. The second one in terms of style. So in terms of style, we have got formal and informal. And formal communication is further divided into upward, downward, horizontal, and lateral or diagonal. Just put down diagonal, sorry, diagonal. So we understand these are the types of the formal communication. I'm just making sure that I record it correctly. And in informal communication types are single strand. I need to find another marker for you guys. Oh, just 2 seconds. So single strand is one type, and after single strand we have got gossip chain, and then we have got probability chain, and we have got cluster chain. So these are the types of communication in terms of style and in terms of channel, but communication is further divided in terms of levels. Okay, so in terms of levels we have got intrapersonal, we have interpersonal, we have intra-group, we have intergroup, we have intra-organizational, that's intra-organizational, sorry, inter-organizational, and the last one is mass communication. That's the highest form of communication in terms of levels, where masses can be the communication can be made to the masses. So we have identified 3 ways we can sort of look at the communication. The last way is in terms of environment. In terms of environment. Now, in terms of environment, of course, we have internal and external communication. Internal, of course, will be dealing with the internal stakeholders like employees, managers, and of course customers as well. And external will be dealing with the suppliers, government, NGOs, regulators. So we understand now, this is the entire map that we have created, where we can divide different forms of communication. So when we discuss communication, guys, of course, mainly it is about the channel that it is divided. So what do you guys think? What's the proportion between verbal and non-verbal communication? What's the proportion? When I'm talking to you guys, you can see that right now I'm visible to you and I'm making content. I'm producing a content. I'm making contact with you through my communication. So what's the proportion? Is it my non-verbal communication that is more, or is it my verbal communication? So when we discuss verbal communication, you can see whatever I have written on this board, that written part is the part of my verbal communication, and oral communication, whatever I have spoken so far in this lecture, is the part of my verbal communication as well. So far I've discussed that whatever I'm speaking right now and whatever I'm writing is the part of verbal communication. But comes the question, what's the non-verbal communication? And what's the proportion between the two? Many of people get it wrong. They say the 70% of the verbal and 30% of the non-verbal. However, you will be surprised to see that it is the other way around. It is 70% the non-verbal communication right now that is taking place when I'm delivering this lecture, and 30% is the verbal communication that is taking place. And you may ask a question, why? How is that possible? That verbal communication is 30 and non-verbal is 70. And this is where things come into play. For example, if you look at me right now, the one thing that you can identify is my hands. My hands are continuously sort of like moving when I'm talking. And it is supporting, it is complementing my verbal communication. So if I just make sure that I don't have my hand movement, I just become a statue and talk like this, yes, this is business communication, you'll be like, what's going on? My communication will not be as effective as it is right now with my non-verbal communication. And of course, in non-verbal communication, the very first thing is haptics. What's that? Haptics. Haptics are playing a very crucial part, a vital role when I'm communicating with you guys. If my hands movements are not there, you wouldn't be able to understand a single word I'm saying, because my body language might contradict what I'm saying to you. So haptics is the first thing that we want to be careful with when we are doing the overall communication. We want to make sure that we have our hands moving. They're supporting our communication. The second one we have got is called kinesics. Kinesics is the entire body. So entire body that you can see right now is the part of the kinesics. And I don't know if you know Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, have been touted. Well, most of the observers have made an observation that he might be suffering from dementia because he keeps one hand in his pocket, right pocket. So when you have got one hand in your right pocket and your left hand is free, it is one of the signs of dementia, early dementia. But you know what? Vladimir Putin has been in secret services for God knows so many years. And he's keeping his right hand in the pocket because he can bring his gun out. And this is what kinesics are. So those investigators or those sort of like law enforcers who are available at the airport and they are trying to track someone who is suspicious, they have doubted someone, they read something called kinesics first. The very first thing that they want to be concerned with is the kinesics, whether the body language is suspicious or not. So you're going for an interview and your shoulders are down, you're like, I'm tired today, oh man, I can't make it. You come to work, your manager will look at your body language and he will say whether he's on a positive energy or negative energy, whether he is 100% or not. And this is where the kinesics come into play, that we want to make sure that our body language speaks louder than our words. As we say, actions speak louder than words. So if you look military man, he might be alert all the time like this. But if you look the body language of forgive me if I'm saying this, some of the policemen in Pakistan, they're like, that's where it shows that whether you are really active to take up the job or not. And same goes with the employees. If employees don't have the positive body language, they are not alert, not 100%, their communication will falter. There will be a breakdown in the communication process. So we have identified non-verbal communication is 70% when we are communicating, and two of the factors that we have identified are haptics and kinesics. The third one in non-verbal communication that we can identify is called proxemics. And proxemics is about maintaining distance. So we live in a time where things have become very casual, and gone are the days where we were very formal in the offices. Nowadays people can wear shorts and they can come to the offices and they can sort of like work their way. But when we discuss proxemics, it's about the distance. So I'm pretty sure some of you might have one of those sticky friends in your class who runs after you guys when you are going to the canteen, and he's running after you. Hey guys, you forget about me, and you guys run. He's coming after you, and he comes and he's so informal. He even takes a sip from your cup of tea. He takes a bite of your lunch or sandwich, and he doesn't care. He's not maintaining his personal space. And same can happen with you when you're working at a workplace. And this is a very dangerous thing nowadays, especially in the era of women empowerment. If you're not minding your personal space, you're trying to get an uninvited attention, unsolicited attention from a female or someone, and you're just being friendly from your end, it can be misperceived. And that's why we are saying when you are in a formal environment, no matter you have had a party with your boss last night, you have danced together shoulder to shoulder, next day when you come back to work, you gotta be formal. You want to maintain your space. So you want to mind your space. You don't want to violate someone else's personal space. You don't want to infringe that. That's something you want to be careful with. So proxemics have a very, very important role to play here. And come chronemics. Chronemics is the delay in response. So for example, if you were talking to your boss and somehow your boss forget to respond to you on time, or he is taking his time to respond to you, you get panicky, you get literally worried that why my boss is not responding to me. So when someone is not responding to you on time, this is called chronemics, and there is a silent message in there. Maybe boss is trying to teach you a lesson, he's trying to direct you to something. So that's something you want to be very careful with when you're dealing with the professional environment. Chronemics, make sure there's no delay in response. So that's another thing. And sometimes you send a message to someone and this person is typing message on WhatsApp and you can view that, but he's not responding to you. Why? Because on purpose that person might be trying to communicate a message, and that's non-verbal communication. And talk about pauses. If someone talks to me, says something, and I'm taking my time in responding and I'm looking at him, yeah, that's chronemics. My silence is speaking a lot of things out here. Yeah. So after chronemics we have got sign language, and I'm pretty sure all of you are aware of sign languages, green color and road signs, and there are many symbols that we have got that have got different interpretation and different meanings in different cultures, and that's the sign language. And unfortunately in Pakistan we don't have marked streets where each street has a name and directions are given. So that's one of the drawbacks that in Pakistan we have. So yes, sign language. And the last one is what? Para language. And para language has to do with your tone of voice, your eye contact, your facial expressions. For example, if you guys are taking exam and your teacher comes from the back and you're peeping into someone's copy, your teacher will just have a look at. And that one stare can translate the message that you're doing something wrong. You're complicit, you're involved in complicity, and you're guilty of some wrongdoing. And that message can translate even if the teacher says nothing. He's like, and you're looking to someone's copy. So that's the example of paralanguage. Even eyebrows, when it goes up, for example, and I use this sort of like example when I'm in class. If you guys are at home and your auntie is visiting you and she has got young kids, and these kids are playing in the drawing room, and one of the kids is about to smash the decoration piece, which is very expensive, lying there, and you cannot speak in front of your relatives or your guests because it looks offensive, and you're trying very hard with your facial expression to hush away the kid, and you're like, you try everything to stop that kid from smashing the decoration, who is maybe acting like a Tarzan, using curtains to go from one end to another end. He's swinging on that. And this is where your para language comes into play. Your eyebrows, your eye contact, googly eyes, your facial expression, your tone of voices, sometimes pauses. So all these things are the example of what? Para language, which we utilize to communicate. So we understand, guys, so far we have looked at two lectures, lecture number 1 and 2. First was the understanding business communication, and we understood that how business communication has a role to play, and we understand we live in a world where communication is the lifeblood of an organization, and businesses are lying to us on many occasions. Our data has been stolen, data theft, misinformation, propaganda, all these things are taking place, and that's why businesses have to engage in ethical communication. Whatever communication events they are utilizing or communication infrastructure they are utilizing should be ethical in nature. And we understood the process, a simple model, DK Barlow model, to explain the business communication process. And after that we have looked at how communication has evolved over the period of time, from print media to artificial intelligence, and what's coming in next 10-20 years we don't know. And we understand different types of communication. Communication can be divided in terms of channel, in terms of style, in terms of levels, and in terms of environment. So in terms of channel, we have discussed verbal and non-verbal, and especially non-verbal in this one. Next lecture we'll be discussing the verbal communication, advantages and disadvantages of oral and written communication, and we'll be looking at other types of communication. So until then, I'll see you next week, or hopefully with the next lecture. I wish you good luck, guys. Stay safe and look after yourself. Thank you so much.